Awesome. Okay, so I'm Sean McConnachie. I'm 37 years old. I live in Coldwater, Ontario, and I'm a novice rally driver, which is kind of a cool thing to say. You know, it's always been a dream of mine to just be a race car driver. I'm sure that many of, if not every single person here has had that kind of dream. And for me, it started at a young age. My father went to high school with Scott Goodyear. I'm not sure if everybody knows who Scott Goodyear is, but he's a Canadian IndyCar driver. He came very close to winning the Indianapolis 500 twice in the 90s. And before my parents had me, my dad actually toured around with Scott Goodyear when he was racing Formula Atlantics and Formula Fords. So I was born into a household where we were just watching racing all of the time. I got into rally though, probably like around 7 or 8 years old, watching it on TSN. They'd have the Canadian Rally Championship on there, and they would have replays of the World Rally Championship. And I just remember watching Tommy Mäkinen's Marlboro livery Lancer just blasting through the world, and was just in awe of it. So, you know, like go many years ahead. You know, we got to a place where in my life where I felt like, you know, racing was something that I could afford to do, both time-wise and stuff like that, and I just really, really wanted to get into it. So I actually started karting and tried my hand at that, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, but one of the things I definitely realized very quickly is that I didn't like racing with other people. You just need to be leading a race once and get bumped from behind going into a hairpin and ending up the race being over on the final lap one time, and being an adult and just being very upset. I'm like, why am I so angry? I don't need to be this angry. So I was like, I want to try something that it's just me and the clock, where it's just, you know, you're racing yourself, right? For me, I just really wanted to get into rally if I was going to do that. So I went out and bought a used 2014 Fiesta ST. I was just enamored with the car. I thought it was a really cool car. It was at that time too. It was in 2017, where, you know, it was like considered like the best hot hatch in North America, like all around hot hatch. And when I bought it, I didn't tell my wife, but my full intention was that I'm going to convert this into a race car. You guys listen to Dinner with Racers at all? The podcast?
Since you told me about it,
yes. Yes? Okay, so one of the things that they say on it, every good racing career starts out with a lie, so I'm hoping that's kind of the case here. Yeah, so we bought the car, and I actually got it a week before we were going to Tall Pines. So how I got into rally a little bit before that was, you know, just watching Launch Control, like Subaru Rally Team USA's Launch Control, you know, seeing GRC, so the Red Bull Global Rallycross Series, and going to an event in Ottawa, and just the roar, the excitement of it, and just like, just everything about rally just really spoke to me, and I just wanted to pick out a rally car. And the reason I ended up going with the Fiesta ST was because there's lots of parts out there for it, and a lot of rally-specific components that are made for this car. A lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people, when they go into the sport, they want to try and build something really cool, but that's not necessarily the best way. Do that if you have built cars before, where you can manufacture your own components. You want to get something like, that's why there's so many Subarus, because there's so many parts for Subarus. There's so many aftermarket components for Subarus. And I went with the Ford Fiesta because in Europe, it's huge there, right? Like, you look at the British Rally Championship, BRC, their starting levels is all Ford Fiestas pretty much, right? So there's just a lot of components, and it was starting to become a bigger thing too in North America. There's lots of Ford Fiestas that run in the American Rally Association Championship. So it just seemed like, it would just be easier, less complicated, and more cost effective to do this. And one of the reasons why, like, a lot of people have asked me when I was getting started, well, why didn't you get a WRX or an STI? Cost. It costs way more to purchase that car. It costs way more to run. I'm running 1 diff, an STI's got 3, right? So there's that, tires. Like, if you're running a front wheel drive vehicle, you're not chewing through tires as much, right? Because everything is focused on, well, not everything, but most of it is focused on the front tires, right? All of the degrading heat, all of that just goes through those tires. So you can even just swap out the rears for the fronts on stage and keep it fresh. Well, in a rear wheel or an all-wheel drive vehicle, especially like an STI where you can change center differential settings, you can be chewing up the rears more than you're chewing up the fronts, right? So just from a cost aspect, it seemed like a good idea. And like, this was all in my head as I was picking out a car that I was driving to work. So I was really thinking like very far ahead, and like I came to the realization, because like, we do okay, but we're not like Brazilianaires. So it had to be a very like logical, stepwise process and a long-term process and game plan to try to get into it. So the first step was get the car, got the car. And then convincing my wife and partner, Catherine, that I can race the car. And she said, once it's paid off. So I was like, okay, excellent. So we had a line of credit from the house that paid off the car loan. And I was like, well, now it's paid off. So it's time to go racing. So I started doing Rallycross. It's the best way to get into the sport and get used to sliding around on mixed surfaces while going fast. Yes?
Can you explain to me what Rallycross is?
Yes, so the question was, what is Rallycross, or what? Yes. So Rallycross is like autocross, except you're on mixed surfaces. There can be some asphalt incorporated into some tracks, but usually it's gravel, mud, dirt, and there is a difference between dirt and gravel, ice and snow. It's time-based. Usually an event will have about between 6 and 8 stages in a day. And a stage, you run the same stage generally over and over throughout the day. There can be the Kitchener-Waterloo Rally Club, which is a fantastic rally club, and I have been a member of the rally club since 2016. They run an incredibly successful Rallycross series. Like, it's very, very well run, great courses, stuff like that. So we will usually you can get up to 50 cars at an event. Most of the time they actually run 2-day events because they get so much interest that they have to split it up into 2 days. And to be quite honest, most of the cars there, the majority are 2-wheel drive cars. So with Rallycross, you can show up with a car on a trailer that isn't licensed or safetied or anything. One of my friends, Eric Vlasic, who's a master mechanic, great friend of mine, has been kind of a mentor to me through this whole experience. He goes to a local junkyard and just picks out a car that has the same bolt pattern as what he has tires for, puts it on a trailer, goes to his shop, puts the gravel tires on, and then goes to the event. Yeah, he does it all the time, and it's really, really funny. But then, like, for me, I was driving my daily, so I was driving to the event with my car, and a lot of people do that. It's a big mix. Like, you will have, last weekend, Toyota Echo showed up, like first gen Echo was there, which is super cool. We've had 1990s Jaguars, 1970 Fords, you get the whole gamut. Yes, there's lots and lots of Subarus. So the class structure for Rallycross is two-wheel drive, so front or rear, no power stuff. Yep, go ahead.
What are the minimum modifications required to participate?
In Rallycross, so you can be like my friend and pick up a junkyard car, and you don't care if you smack a rock off the oil pan. You just call it a day and get a bunch of buddies to push it on a trailer for you. But when I was driving my daily, I went and bought just beefier suspension. So Bill Steen makes a damper called a B6, and it's mostly available for all makes and models of vehicles. So it's just a beefier version of, the stem is larger and the cylinder is larger than what would be on a normal car, but the rebounding effect is the same, so it's not like a harsh rebound. And you can use just the OEM springs on it, and it will just prevent like really bad compressions and keep the car more stable and intact. Because people that show up with OEM dampers, they'll blow by the end of the day. One of them will, and then it almost always happens. So a little bit beefier up dampers, and they're not that expensive. Like I bought mine for I think about $800 for the set. And that was good. And then the next thing, the other thing to go out that I definitely think is a requirement is a skid plate. There's a lot of skid plates that are available, especially for Subarus. Like there's lots of companies that build them that you can just buy them prefabricated, and they'll you might have to put like some bolt-on mounts that come down from the pillars on along the engine. But with mine, I got it from a guy called the Skid Plate Guy. He's out of the United States, and his focus is on providing skid plates for Rallycross. So he's got it for a bunch of different makes and models of cars. They're not very expensive either. And that's why this sport is really good, because it doesn't cost a lot. Like you can just get a $500 car from a wreckers, like get a Honda Civic that wouldn't pass inspection, but you can throw some like a smidge of money at it, and you can go out and have a very competitive car. The other thing that what you need to do is just have snow tires, essentially. Like go out with snow tires. You can do gravel tires, but it's not necessary. Gravel tires you can go faster with, but snow tires are essentially all you need. So you could, modification-wise, under $2,000, and you'll have a competitive rallycross car. Weight reduction's a big one. I took anything that was behind the driver's seat, just went, and I was still dailying, and it was very loud.
For your rallycross, do you have to have a cage, or can you run without?
You do not. Yeah, no, you do not need a cage for rallycross.
No safety?
No safety equipment other than a helmet. Yes. No. So one of the things is that there's a minimum, an average speed limit for a rallycross course. So there's no long straight where you're going to be hitting 120 kilometers an hour, right? It's turn into turn. So it's like an autocross course, but a little bit wider and a little bit longer. Our courses are generally 1.5 kilometers to potentially 3 kilometers in distance, which is still a half decent amount of driving time, but you're sliding around corners mostly. Like only some tracks I would get into third gear, right? Like everything was first and second. Essentially going through it. But it's really good for learning how, like shifting fast, right? Because you're shifting a ton, right? Learning heel and toe, or the biggest thing is learning how to left foot brake. Because especially with a front wheel drive car, that's how you turn it, is with left foot braking. With a Subaru, it's a little bit of both, but you can do a lot of throttle steer to get yourself around a corner, but you need to use the left foot brake to get a front wheel drive car around a corner. A rear wheel drive car is much different too. You want to just set your weight distribution as you're coming into a corner so that you're not too nose heavy coming in. So you want to do your braking a little bit sooner so you don't essentially understeer through the corner, so that you just set, turn, and then get on the power, and then just throttle steer through the corner. as is necessary for a rear-wheel drive car. But for a front-wheel drive car, as you're going through the corner, you're going to be braking multiple times, essentially just to keep resetting the weight onto the outside front tire to grip in and turn. Yeah, so did that. It was really, really cool. First event I did, had the fastest times, but I also hit 3 barrels. So got a whole bunch of penalties, and one of my rear view mirrors wasn't necessarily intact when I was coming home. But then I came back and won my next 2 events in it, which was really, really cool. Finished 3rd in my first season doing Rallycross, and then did the 2nd season, and it was really interesting. Like just learning more and more how to do car control and become faster. But the biggest thing was building a community. The people that come out to a Rallycross event are super nice. Everybody, because you're not racing against anybody else, so everybody's out is super cool and will talk to you and give you pointers and car setup, how to drive. If you ask, one of the things that they'll do is they'll come sit with you in your passenger seat to give you pointers, right? So like, you know, in the Rallycross stuff, there's people that are former Canadian Rally event winners racing there, or former Ontario Rally champions that are there, and they're more than willing to give people pointers and help people out. It's really, really, really cool. So in my 2nd season, we ended up winning the championship. Came down to the very last race. We needed to win the last race to win the championship, and we did, which was super, super cool. There's pictures of me and Catherine hugging. I was crying a whole bunch because it was like super emotional and stuff, because like even though it's like the most entry-level form of rally, there's still a lot of time that goes into it. You know, car prep, cleaning dampers, all that stuff whenever you're going into an event. So it was just like really, really cool. But when right after that, I ended up losing my job and was unemployed for a while, and we ended up having to sell a bunch of stuff, like race equipment and stuff. So like throughout the entire process, you build up your race team, like people and equipment as you're going, right? Like I started off working in my driveway, gravel driveway, with just a box of sockets from Canadian Tire and a few wrenches, right? And now I've got like a ton of actual equipment to be able to work on the car. I still work in a tent in my driveway, but I got a shed now where all my tools sit. So that's a little bit better. So it's possible to just do it wherever you have the space to be able to do it, especially with Rallycross. And it is possible to do it in a daily driver. It's just don't go too buck nuts if it's your daily driver. You don't want to be, people can't, I've seen engines blow, I've seen people money shift too, right? So you don't want to do that if that's your daily, but definitely have CAA. That makes a big difference on getting yourself, not having to worry so much about how you're going to get home at the end of the day at the track. But it's super cheap. Like the entry fees are for members $80 an event. So it's really, really good, and they just love newcomers into the sport. So it's yeah, can't say enough about how awesome that community is. So I ended up losing my job. I had to sell our trailer, a bunch of stuff, and I was thinking about selling the car. We ended up selling our other vehicle because Catherine told me to keep the car because we had plans for it. So I did. So I couldn't race that year myself, but I got an opportunity to co-drive for my friend Eric Vlasic, who I was just mentioning before. So that was my first time participating in a stage rally, was becoming a co-driver. So I ended up really focusing in on co-driving. Co-driving is very interesting, and it's incredible how in rally how important the co-driver really is, just to the confidence of the team and being able to compete in that, especially with Eric. So Eric has won the Ontario Rally Championship, I think twice before I got in the car with him. And he drives around in a 1996 Subaru Legacy, which is super, super badass. This car has been rallying for almost 20 years. It has been with different people. It was actually built on a Discovery Channel show, like car build show, and it ended up in his hands. So went out for that, and so there's this book by Tom McGear that's a co-driver book. So I just read it front to back, did an online co-driver course, and then bought my safety equipment like the Hans, the helmet, the suit, and everything, and then just kind of went for it. And it was a lot of fun. So our first event was Black Bear, which is just outside of Bobcaygeon. And that event, only 2 cars ended up finishing, and we were one of the 2 cars. And that's one of the things about rally is it is an endurance sport. Like you see like WRC and stuff like that, like these things are built to perfection. They have, 8-person service crews that are working on the car, an exponential amount of parts, everything is rebuilt after every one, so they're almost bulletproof, right? In Canadian rally, very few cars are bulletproof, and attrition is a big, big component of it, so the main focus is to finish. So when we were in that rally, we were doing really well, and I was having a good time calling notes, and I gotta say, sitting in the co-driver's seat is a lot of fun. Sliding around corners, and like you're going through a corner and you're looking straight through the corner but through your window, like while the other person's wheeling beside you, is a pretty exhilarating thing. It's like riding the world's best roller coaster. But you got to make sure that you don't puke, and I puked in my first rally. So most people get motion sickness the first time because you're just like this, reading, right? Like right 3 over crest into left 4 tightens, right? So you're just reading the entire time, bumping and moving all over, right? So it's hard to keep your plane, right? So everything gets out of equilibrium. But I didn't find that bad. I found the worst part was recce, because you're writing notes while they're driving through the entire course, right? So writing, you're focused way more. Like when I was calling notes, I could look up. Like I could call up, like, and Eric wanted his notes called 2 corners ahead. So once I knew I was 2 corners ahead, I could look up, right? Kind of adjust. But when you're writing notes, like they're just talking at you, right? So you're just scribbling, and you're scribbling in a car, bouncing all over the place, right? And I almost threw up a few times when we were doing recce. But during the event, I ended up getting heat stroke on the very last stage of the day, about a third of the way through. And so one of the things they said is, if you're a first-time co-driver, bring barf bags. And oh my God, did I need them. So we went off a jump, and I just felt it. And I just grabbed it from my co-driver's bag, rammed it into my helmet, and just started puking my brains out. But the worst thing is you're mic'd into the driver. So he's driving about 5 kilometers while I'm just vomiting in his ear. And we can't turn it down because you need to make sure the person's okay. But I still had my notes for a point, so I was like in between pukes calling notes. And then we hit a big jump, and I only had one hand on the notes, and they just fell between my feet. And then I was like off notes, like drive by yourself, right? But I was feeling really, really, really sick. So he's like, should we stop? Should we stop? And I'm like, no, finish. We are on the last stage of the day, just finish the rally. So we transit back, and I am absolutely toast. And Justin, who's in the crowd, is called the Rally Medic on Instagram. He does oversees medical and emergency services for Ontario Rally Sport. He took care of me to make sure that I was okay, got me, brought down the temp, got me hydrated. It was actually really good that the community center where we had a shower, so they just dumped me out of my race suit into a cold shower to do this. But while this is all happening is the podium ceremony is going on. So Eric's up there by himself with there's just a bottle of champagne sitting on the ground, no co-driver. So that was kind of funny. And I was so dehydrated that we had to actually get Kelly, who's big in this, been in the sport for a very long time. She ended up driving my car back to where we were staying because I still couldn't drive at that time. But yeah, so once I did that, I knew for sure that was both the best and it was an incredible and terrible experience all at the same time, but it was so awesome that I knew that I still wanted to do it. So at that point, I had a good job again, was, you know, getting through all the debts and stuff that come with losing a job, and just getting back up to snuff. And I was like, okay, so do I keep rallycrossing or do I try to build a rally car? So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna build a rally car. So I took another 2 years off, so essentially 3 years of not racing myself to make sure that I could build a rally car. Because it is, if you're paying someone to do it, it is not as time-consuming of a process. If you're doing it yourself, it is a very time-consuming process, especially if you've never done that before. So the first time I learned how to weld was on my own car. First time I've ever taken a car apart, my own car. First time I had ever done any wiring was my own car. So it was a nerve-wracking, very interesting experience, but I did it with the help of friends, and that's one thing if you're going to build your own race car, and like that's not something that, like, from a technical background, that is something that's in your wheelhouse, you probably have friends that know a little bit of one component or another component, and people are more than willing to help you out for a case of beer or just some good laughs, and that's what I was able to do. I couldn't build the rally car fully in our gravel driveway, so I had a friend that let me use his garage for 6 months, where I'd just come over every weekend, hang out with him and his kids, and work on the car, essentially stripping it down to a shell. For the roll cage, we ended up buying a cage kit because he's a welder, and so his name's Daryl. So thank you, Daryl. So we bought a cage kit, and we did some sample welds to send to CARS, which is the best acronym, I think, in motorsport. So it's the Canadian Association of Rally Sport. So they oversee the safety regulations and all national level events, regional, Rallycross. They oversee everything. They're an FIA affiliated organization. And yeah, so we did some welds, sent it to them, and they weren't good enough, so then we had to go find a welder. So we were able to find Midnight Fabrication is a new shop just north of Toronto. They're absolutely fantastic. Was able to weld the cage up, and then, you know, it sat in each component. It kind of just sat. It was like I would finish something. So I spent a bunch of money, you know, parts, whatever, getting somebody to do it, and then I'd have to sit and then save up like a few more grand, and then it would go somewhere. Like, so it was just a process. It just took a lot of time to get going. So we finished the car, was it July last year? No, July this year. No, last year. What year is it? 2022. Yeah, 2021. So we finished it in July 2021, and I finished it, was it 4 days before our first rally? Yeah, so we got it back from one shop really late, and I still had a lot of, I had to put the wiring back together and stuff like that, and do a lot of like these little safety things that you need to do to get it up to the car's spec for their safety requirements. And so I was working on that car, up to 4 days before the actual rally itself, like 2 o'clock at night, like would work and then come home for like 2 weeks straight, just working until 2 o'clock at night. I was getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep every night, and then just wake up and go to work, come back, work on the car all night, and just do the same thing over and over again. So we did our first stage rally at Black Bear, where I had navigated and thrown up in my helmet before. And it was so nerve-wracking going through technical inspection. That was like kind of the biggest hurdle to go through for the first event, because you follow the rule book and you think you got everything right, but you don't know until someone from tech goes through your car, right? So when they were going through it, I was just sweating bullets. Like, I did not know if we're going to pass, and if you don't pass, you've driven out to hours away to this event and spent a lot of money to get there and to do everything, and you could be just turned around and sent home, right? So thank goodness it passed, which was just like amazing, and just was just a testament to like the last 2 years of working on this car and just learning all this stuff by myself and with the help of others. YouTube videos are very, very helpful too. For anything, but yeah, there's lots of even rally YouTube video builds out there that are really, really helpful. So we get through tech, so we're doing our first event, and we're super excited going on the first stage, and we're going through and we're going fast, and it's feeling good, and then temperature light shows up, right? So we start overheating, goes into limp mode. So we're limping along for 4 kilometers, doing 60K, and just blowing time. So it comes back, temps come down, we can start going again. So we finish the stage, right? And we're like, oh, that was crazy. Then we go out for the next stage. So we're driving along, and then a car flips in front of us. So one of the things in rally is you have to have first responder, first aid training. Because your team will be the first ones that come up to an accident. It's probably one of the only motorsports where you're encouraged to get out of your car to help what's going on, right? So we come by a flipped car, so we slow down, and they get out, give the thumbs up, and then you go on your way, and we start going, and then I start losing throttle, and I'm like, what the heck's happening? So we get back, and I diagnose it. We lost a cylinder. So one of our coil packs went, and I didn't have any extra parts with us because we showed up without any service crew. So it was just me and my co-driver, John Garretts, who's a fantastic, awesome rally partner. And the co-driver, it is such a partnership for you in the car, because you're in there all day just sitting beside someone going through these really intense moments together. And when they start calling notes too, you have to really start trusting the person that's beside you, that they're calling the right thing, right? But they also have to trust you that you're not going to be driving like a jackass and putting them in danger, right? Because the big thing is in WRC, they're paid for that. Nicky Chris with Colin McRae was paid good money to drive beside one of the craziest and best rally drivers in the world, right? My buddy John has to go to work on Monday, so I don't want to and I'd have to tell his family what I was thinking if I put us into a tree passenger side first. And honestly, that is always the first instinct too, is oh, I'm about to crash, passenger side, right? So you have to be a little crazy to be a co-driver and want to sit in the silly seat, but it is a lot of fun. So that rally was just a bunch of engine and electronic gremlins came up because we hadn't really run the car, but we were able to do some stuff at Oro Station. So thank you, Jeffrey. That's actually the first time I ever drove the car was at Oro Station. So I drove it to Oro Station too, and then drove it.
My first time driving it too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Jeffrey has gotten to drive it, and he did say that it's better than Mavericks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Terrible. More reliable.
Yeah, more reliable than Maverick. But when we did the test there, none of the engine problems popped up because we were doing like a 1.5 kilometer circuit, right? 2 kilometer circuit there. So it didn't really have like a lot of heat stuff because it's to happen. So like once you're on a rally stage and you're pinning it and you're essentially wide open throttle constantly, the heat just really just gets stuck in there. So racing is just it's a learning experience, right? You think that you're ready, but you're never ever going to actually be ready for what you're going to do. So you just got to go for it. Like when I figured I was going to do Rallycross, I wanted to make sure like my car was the best, that it was set up the best that I could do it, best equipment that I could get. But it was like, no, like get out there, get seat time. That's all that matters. Like there's people that are running up with like, a 30-year-old like Honda Civics, right? And like you just go out and get the experience. And the same thing was, I was so nervous about going into the rally. I'm like, the car's not ready yet. The car's not ready yet. But it's at a certain point you have to just say, no, you're going to go out, and because the car is never going to be ready. Like even the best rally teams in Canada, the cars can break down 1 or 2 stages into it. I think it was 2017 that Antoine Lesage and Subaru Rally Team Canada's car, the car broke down on the first stage of a rally, right? So you're never fully ready and fully prepared. So I also volunteer a lot too. I think one of the best things you can do as someone who drives in a sport, the further up the chain you move, going and volunteering for the people that come and volunteer for you is really, really important. Giving back to your sport is really important because stage rally takes hundreds of volunteers, right? But there's only 50 of us that are racing at an event, right? But you go to the Rallycross clubs or the navigational rally clubs, and they'll have maybe 100 people that compete on a regular basis. But those are the people that are showing up at stage. Like those are the smiling faces when you roll up to time control that are there. And it's also super nice and brings your heart rate down and calms the nerves when you see a smiling face, someone that that you pull up to the beginning of the stage on as well. So we had lots of mechanical problems that were happening at Black Bear, but we really pulled it back, dialed it back, and just made sure we finished. And we finished third because the 3 other cars had problems. 2 DNFs and 1 person had mechanical issues that meant they were worse mechanical issues than our mechanical issues. So it was just about finishing, right? And yeah, so that was our first event, first podium. When we went into the event, I didn't want to know how we were doing at any time. I didn't want to know what our times were, what position we were, because everything's on digital. You can see it on the phone. And when you come back to service, like people want to tell you how you're doing. And I was just like, do not tell me, because if you told me I was like 15 seconds away from the next person in front of me and I got a broken car, I'm just going to pin it and I'm going to blow my engine up, right? So I think for me, it's like, racing's a lot of mental stuff, and like being mentally, you want to go in like mentally prepared that I could blow this car up today, or I could get in an accident, because it may happen, right? But you also want to go in trying to temper your expectations too. Is like, I'm also not going to, like, there's a chance that if I keep this thing on the road, we can win, right? Like, because all it takes is just one rock that pops out of a corner from the car in front of you or in front of someone else. They hit it, blow their strut, and they're on the roof, right? So, because it's not like circuit racing where you're hitting your marks, right? You're going through each time, you're trying to be just as progressive, just a little bit more progressive as you're going through, but the corners are always going to be the same unless it's raining or anything like that. With rally, sure, you'll run the same stages a few times over, but rocks will be thrown in your way, right? Things that were a cut are no longer a cut because everybody's cut so much that because there's big rocks that are underground, but like with the big powered Subarus, they just clear like 6 inches of dirt away from that. So something that was sticking out of the ground like that is now sticking out of the ground like that. So your line now has to change when you're going through those corners. And as someone who just started, like I think one of the key things to do is when you're driving through that is you're not driving like on the edge of your seat. You want to have some level of capacity to be able to see obstacles as they start coming through. So you want to hit your braking point maybe 10, 15 feet back from where realistically you could do it. But by doing that, it gives you a little bit more room to be able to do it, like to miss obstacles. Like, and there's rocks that always get thrown out by the bigger cars. So like at Tall Pines, our skid plate got demolished. It did its job, which is fantastic. But it was because I had enough time to be able to be like, that's going to hit the suspension, but I can get the car over so I hit it straight on. Because I rather have it hit the skid plate than hit the suspension, right? Because you'll just go over it. It's still a hard hit, but you're not taking, because the suspension blows when you're out on stage, your day's done, right? And fixing, changing out tires, you know, you're gonna have to do it. We didn't actually, I still haven't had to change a tire out on stage yet, so I'm actually pretty happy about that. Because we've come up to a lot of people that have. But it's just a lot easier just to take it off the skid plate and then do that, because that part of the car is meant to take that impact. And so just having a little bit more time to be able to, like, not going so fast that you feel that you're just at the absolute limit of control, and to just give yourself some margin of error. So we ended up doing, so there's lots of photos of like the car build itself and like doing some welding and stuff like that. But we did Tall Pines, which was super cool. We competed in the national championship at Tall Pines. We ended up coming 3rd in class, but that was a really interesting day. We went into it because Tall Pines is notoriously the toughest rally in Canada, because it's got the roughest sections of road in Canada, and generally less than half the field finish a race in it. And like that's one of the things about rally, is finishing is a feat in and of itself. Even at the Black Bear, I think half of the fields finished Black Bear too. So yeah, so it's just about finishing. And with a new car too, I didn't really know what type of impact it could really take. Like we got rally suspension from M Sport, from their Polish factory, and it was the first time without that on the car, and I didn't really know how many bumps or anything that it could take. So the first 2 stages we took it like really easy, right? So we were in second last place. I think the only thing that was behind us was a Suzuki Swift, a 1990 Suzuki Swift that was making like maybe 90 horsepower. But we started gaining our confidence, and then one thing, my co-driver got lost in the notes, and like whenever he got lost in the notes, oh yeah, 10 minutes, okay, no problem. You have to just drive by line of sight. So I was just like driving line of sight, and I just had it pinned, and we hit a jump like wicked fast, and like flew like maybe 40 feet down the road. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe the car can handle a bunch. So then we were just like, okay, let's roll. So then we started pegging off times. In the last 5 out of 12 stages, we ended up winning them in class. And one of the stages, we actually came 5th overall out of all 27 cars that were running at that point in time. So we beat like national level Subaru STIs in a 1.6 liter 4-banger front wheel drive, which was pretty damn cool. And yeah, so we finished the rally, and again, I didn't want anybody to tell us how we were doing and stuff like that, so we just walk up to the podium, and they announced us as third place for the national championship, so I got this sweet Pirelli hat out of it. You don't win money in rally. You get hats and plaques and cheap champagne. No, that would be very nice, though. That would be very nice. Most of the money goes back to the communities because to maintain the roads and fix them up and stuff like that, just for the privilege of being able to potentially take out their mailboxes and their front yard fences. But yeah, so that was super shocking. But then, like, bigger shock to me, like coming third in national event was super cool. But then I ended up winning the regional event, which I didn't realize at all. So when they said my name first, I freaking blacked out and was running around, high-fiving everyone. I ran through the entire crowd. I think I high-fived every single person there. Yeah, that one there. And it was just really crazy. But I guess, because I don't got a lot of time left, that's been my journey in it. We're going to be doing Rally Paris-Neige at the beginning of April, and going to be doing a bunch of other events this year. But if you want to just start grassroots, it's always have that end goal in mind, and there's going to be so many things that get in your way, so many deviations along that path. It's not about necessarily having a full plan, just knowing where you want to go and understand that it's going to be step by step to get it. But you can't do it alone. Catherine has been biggest support for me in this entire process. Like, how many people have a partner that's like, yeah, go drive 160 kilometers through a one-lane road in the woods. Yeah, not a problem, right? Oh, take your daily driver and turn it into a rally car, right? So you all need support, but you also need friends that are willing to help you out, right? In any kind of little tiny way that they can. Like, I can't thank Jeffrey enough for giving me a place to practice and shake down my car. Like, that's absolutely massive, right? I can't thank my friend Daryl enough for teaching me how to weld and giving me his garage for a while, right? And I can't thank my friend Eric Vlasic enough too for just being a mentor and always being there whenever I had a question about the car. He was always willing to pick up the phone and give me a hand. And it's just it takes a village to build a rally team or any motorsports team. You can't do it alone, and it's just also just respect what you're doing and enjoy it while you're doing it, right? It's not about going as fast as you can. It's about going for as long as you can. I rather be racing rally into my 50s than win a national championship right now, because I'm going to have a lot of good times along the way. And if I did a national championship but then could never rally again, I wouldn't want to do that, right? So when it's your own stuff, your own machinery, where you can't rebuild it again, or it would take years to do it, you guys got to drive like you want. We drive now not for the rally we're at, so that we can show up to the next rally. And I think that, like, for a lot of motorsports, like, that's why a lot of people can crash and burn, not in the literal sense, but in the more metaphorical sense, that they get into the sport, they spend a lot of money, and then they have one big accident, and then they never come back, right? Because it's a bad experience. An accident isn't fun, right? It's not cool. You can get injured, but it's also all that time, money, and effort. You've blown it away, right? So it's about the journey. It's about the journey, and I'm really excited to be doing this for many, many years to come. And hopefully you guys are interested in rally and Rallycross or anything like that, and I'm can be a resource to you, to help you out, to introduce you to the right people, to get you into the sport. Like, I volunteer at Rallycrosses all the time, so I can bring you to a Rallycross so you can see it, you can meet the organizers, meet the people that do it. Or if you want to bring a Ford Focus with a WRC livery, it's a good place. It's a good place to bring a car like that. So, yeah. Yeah.
Question. So if I was to just give you a blank check right now and say it's good for as many dollars as you want, but it's only good to spend on a rally car, what car would you want?
Me?
Yeah.
I
It comes. The check can also buy the support crew for it.
buy the. Oh wow, could buy the support. Oh okay, well, if that was it, I'm a Ford homer, a homeboy, so I would definitely say Ford Puma hybrid that they're running right now. Those cars are unreal. Well, so Eric Vlasic, you've met him. So he was doing gravel crew for a team at Monte Carlo. This is the second time he's been at Monte Carlo Rally, and he got to see all of the cars. He actually got to drive every single stage on the days they were running the stages. Some of the in-car that he has of the fireworks and stuff like that, just incredible. Rally is a different beast in Europe and in other parts of the world. It's not very, even in America, it's getting pretty big again, but not so much in Canada, which I don't know why, but I think we need to make it more fun and exciting for people to get into and like understand that it is about fun. Like, oh my God, I cannot tell you how much fun it is driving down a road, white knuckling it, and jumping and sliding, and like you look down and you're doing 180, and you can still see like a corner, like 200 meters away, and you just know that you're still going to keep up some speed, and you finish at the end of it, and it's just like, oh my God, like it's just the most incredible feeling in the world. It's something else. Like it's very Zen-like, and just so happy, and just doing it with cool people that you love. Like the crew that we had at Tall Pines are good friends of mine, and like we got to experience it and share in it together, and it was just super awesome. Just super, super awesome. Like it's expensive as shit, but worth every penny. Yeah.
How much JB Weld have you used?
On that car, none.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yes, no, there is no JP Weld on that car. Everything is weld.
It's well done.
Everything is weld. Yeah, no, the entire chassis is seam welded. So I was able to seam weld the entire chassis myself, and that took a long time.
So you had to reinforce it before you did the cage?
Before we did the cage, yeah. The reason you do that is because if you don't do that, the car will last about 5 years of rally, but when you do that, it can last 10, 15 years, you know what I mean? Like just to keep the shell, because to be quite honest, I would love for my niece and nephew to get into rally. Like they're young right now, like, but like, you know, if they ever want to, and I'd be like, hey, here's a car that you can use, that would be pretty fantastic. Yeah, so we got 5 minutes left. I don't know, is there any other questions at all?
Do you still work right now, or is this your full-time?
Pardon?
Do you still have a job right now, or is this your full-time activity?
No, I have a job. Yes. No, this is, yes. No, yes, I have a job. We do have sponsors, so I should shout them out. Seems like the appropriate thing to do. So we have Quail's Brewery, which is out near where we live. They're very fantastic and very excited to become partners with us over the long term. Like they are actually really excited about rally, and we're going to bring them up to a rally this year. Once the COVID restrictions let go, they're going to come up and be a part of the team. And then we have Pinder Security System. So my co-driver works for them, and they give us some money. And I'm an ambassador for You Can Play. So I'm the first motorsports ambassador for You Can Play in Canada. So I'm working with them on developing inclusivity in motorsports, and we'll be going to some events. I might actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, going to the GP in Montreal this year for inclusivity in motorsports. Yeah, they help us get tires, but there's a lot of other costs associated. I don't think there's a single rally team in Canada anymore that's fully paid anymore, eh, Justin? There's no Canadian rally teams anymore that are fully paid rides anymore, eh? Yeah. No. Yeah, everybody's paying out of pocket, but everybody's having a lot of fun. And the rally is one of the coolest things too. So like, if you watch the replay video of Tall Pines that they do for TSN, I wish we were in it more. That would be great for the sponsors, but we aren't. But they show one of the cars that had a wreck earlier, but it was in the championship fight with another car. So the one car beached itself on one of the last stages of the night. The other car coming up behind them stopped and pulled them out to get them going again. When they're both in the championship fight, so they could have just left them in the corner, right? And then it would have been advantageous for them. But that's not what rally's about. And yeah, it's not about that in Canada. It's about trying to help everybody finish. And you know, if someone needs a hand, like working on their car, like in between stages, like we will do that. Like it is about sportsmanship. It's about being there because what comes around goes around, right? If I beach, and I would love for somebody to pull me out, so we'll try to do the same when that happens. Any other questions?
Now it's a round.
Oh.
How do you get to volunteer?
How do you get to volunteer is the question. Yes, yes. Well, yeah, no, we can talk and we'll exchange information. Essentially, there's a volunteer organizer for the events. So it's like, say, going for Tall Pines. If you have ham radio experience, that's always a benefit. They're always looking for people with ham radio experience. Because like the whole rally is run on ham radio. Oh, we're almost out of time. Okay, just a second. I will get to that. This just popped in my head. At Tall Pines this year, we were out on stage at night, and the whole rally stopped. But we were out in an area with no cell reception, but we couldn't get nobody could get a hold of HQ on the radio, and we're out there for like 45 minutes. We have no clue what's going on, and we can't start a next stage until HQ does. So what happened was some drunk guy stole a car from the hospital, got in a high-speed chase, binned it into an electrical pole outside of out near HQ, and took the power out in the entire town of Bancroft. And so we're out there, but like also like all the stages, the OPP like blocks them off, right? So all of a sudden the cop cars disappear, and we're just out there. We have no idea what's happened, but yeah, there was a high-speed chase at Tall Pines that day. So on the volunteer side of things, usually you start like as like crowd control and stuff like that. At Tall Pines, like going to Iron Bridge is the best place. Spectating is the best thing to do because you get the best point to view, right? You get to see it. It's super cool. They're always also looking for technical inspectors. So there's head technical inspectors, but then they train the people that want to do it, but it's the day before the rally. So like a lot of people don't show up until the day of or something like that, and technical inspection can go longer into the evening. But it's super cool because you get to see all the cars, and they give you a checklist. Mostly what you're doing is checking belts, making sure they're like the right dates and all that stuff, right? But it's super cool because you get to look through every single car that's coming through the rally. But they'll pay for accommodations and transportation in many situations as well. If you come to do a rally, if you are a volunteer, so it's the best way to view, and you get to do it for free. But like also like volunteering, they need volunteers. There's lots of volunteers always needed for rallies. So yeah, we can chat afterwards for sure. Yeah.
Do you have to trailer the car now? It's fully got the cage in and it's rally spec?
Yes, we do trailer the car, but it is road legal, licensed, and insured. Yes. It needs to be so for us to drive it in between stages.
Is it hard to keep it so it's road legal?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. But yeah.
How often do events happen? Like when do they happen? What day of the week it is usually?
So it's kind of a mismatch of events. So some events are like So Tall Pines is technically 2 days. So there's 1 day of recce, which is just us bums going out in our trucks, essentially taking notes, and then the actual rally happens on that 1 day. But there are other events that are 2 day. Charlevoix is 2 day, I'm pretty sure. So that's out in Quebec. Big White's 2 days. I think Rocky Mountain, no, is Rocky Mountain 3? Most of them are 2 to 1 days. The 1 days are like, so at Tall Pines, so we are at Service Park at 6 in the morning. We're on the road by 8:30-ish, 9-ish. And then the rally ends usually around 10:30, 11-ish. So it's a full day out there, but then other rallies are 2-dayers where they might start on, on the Friday evening, and then you'll finish like by Saturday evening, or they can be Saturday, Sunday, kind of a little mix between the two. But yeah, they're normally about 2 to 3 days in total. Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah.
I'm coming to thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
That was really awesome.
Thank you.
So guys,
yes.
Sean's around for a bit too. If you
Yeah,
have any
absolutely.
questions that didn't get asked, or if you want to just like ask him something off camera, so to speak, I think he's sticking around for a bit. But thank you so much, Sean. That was really, really awesome.
Well, thank you, and thanks for enjoying my slideshow.
That was also very awesome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, buddy.